Welcome back to another video. My name is Stephen Foster, and if you've been following this channel, you know that my wife and I just got back from a month-long trip traveling up and down the Pacific coast. We spent a little bit of time in Laguna Beach. It was there that I started exploring what was possible, sort of accidentally possible, with the R5, because if you've heard anything about the Canon R5, especially with that 45 megapixel sensor, it's a great professional camera in perfect lighting conditions, or even maybe not so perfect lighting conditions, but start pushing it in some darker settings, you might have some problems, or at least that's kind of the way that I've viewed this camera now for the better part of a year and a half now, I guess, that I've had the Canon R5. And I think I've been holding myself back a little bit on what was possible with the R5. And so I want to share with you guys some of the photos that we took on this trip that have changed my mind as far as the capabilities of the R5 go in low light. Now, there are two things here that I want to get out of the way right off the bat. Photography and videography are two very different things, especially when it comes to low light performance, especially when you're trying to do videography and you need to lock your shutter speed to get that look that you want, whatever frame rate you're trying to go for. Leave a comment down below with if you're team 24, team 30 FPS, or if you're over in Europe, whatever y'all use, because I don't know off the top of my head, or anywhere else in the world. I don't know. Here in North America, I just know there's 24 and 30, but I know there are also sometimes different things. I don't know. And on the video side, I'm well aware of the shortcomings or the challenges that an awesome 45 megapixel sensor has at full frame. Now, hopefully, I've talked about this in another video talking about the Canon R1. Hopefully we'll see a backside illuminated sensor that is 45 megapixels for that camera. We still haven't seen that camera yet, or Canon hasn't announced that camera yet, but that is like top of my wish list for that camera. With that, let's get into the first shot that I took. That was sort of the accidental photo that started this whole experiment off. You see, we were down in Laguna Beach with my wife and my father-in-law and my mother-in-law for my wife's birthday and my father-in-law's birthday. Laguna Beach is like just a really beautiful place, and I had the 70-200 on because I was kind of trying to take some photos of like seagulls and, you know, palm trees and whatever, and I left it on at the end of the day. My wife and my father-in-law were standing out on the deck, and I decided to take this photo sort of randomly from like all the way like at the back of the house, basically, just because it was like a cool little moment with my wife and my father-in-law, and I really didn't think anything of it. I just thought like, oh, this would be like a nice little moment to share with them if it comes out anyway half decent. Turns out, I really love this shot, and this shot is a perfect example of how you can do a low light photo that doesn't necessarily rely on you bumping shadows. You can do photography on this camera and use something like silhouettes to tell a story of a subject. I really like how well actually the gradients come between like the sky, that like red in the sky with the sunset, and like the blues from the ocean. Like that's good. That's a good looking shot. Also just the depth here, like you have like my wife and father-in-law right there in the center part of the focal plane range. Foreground, we sort of have this slider door just hanging out right there to sort of give you some depth to let you know like, hey, we're back, we're inside. And then that, you know, shift out over to infinity out to the horizon line. That's a good shot. I was stoked on this, and this really did get me thinking, you know, hey, like my shadows aren't that grainy here. It's a very usable image. Obviously, it's not something like a 12 or like the R3 that has like a 24 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, but it is still a really good shot, a usable shot, a shot that I actually plan on printing. So, okay, now that we have that under the belt, what comes next? Well, it just so happens that the next night on this trip, or a couple nights on this trip, I think afterwards, we were out at my in-laws' ranch or orchard. They grow oranges and avocados. You guys have probably seen some of that if you've followed me for any amount of time. They have very little light pollution out where their house is at, and there was a blood moon that night. So we decided to stay up a little bit late, wait for the sun to go down, wait for everything to get dark, and see if we could get a shot of the blood moon. Now this particular shot, I had to bump my ISO up to 10,000, and I had to bump my shutter speed down to 1/10 of a second, which is very slow. But what I actually was more impressed by was how much image stabilization built into the body IBIS, and also the image stabilization in the 70-200 allowed me to take this photo handheld. I just went out onto the deck. There was the blood moon. I got a little bit of this tree here. I think it's a jacaranda. Just sort of in the foreground, just so you can get some of that like foreground bokeh and like establishment. So it's not just this moon hanging out in the sky. It's like, it's actually a really like awesome shot. And I sort of just fired it off without thinking about it. And that's kind of like the story here with like these two first shots of me playing with this low light performance on the R5. R5 I think is better than we give it credit for in low light in certain situations at least. Again, this is a scenario where I can bring down my shutter speed. I'm not trying to get any action shots. This is the moon. And granted, while it is moving fast, relatively speaking, it's obviously not fast from our position and location. That's a good way to look at things. The moon is moving quick. We're moving quick too, but I look like I'm sitting still. Terrible. Yeah, okay. But all in all, like, again, this is a shot that I probably would not have attempted if I was just thinking like, oh yeah, it's dark outside. I'm probably not going to use my camera. I was kind of thinking that with the R5 over the better part of my time owning this camera, because I had seen all the reviews and I hadn't seen any positive performance out of the R5 in very low light scenarios. And that's a whole part of the reason why I wanted to make this video, is because I don't think it's as limited, at least as limited as I was thinking it was. And then kind of pulling all this together with this experience that we had where I'd taken the shot at sort of blue hour one of the first nights on this section of the trip, and then I had taken this blood moon shot that I was actually really happy with, that I don't think I would print, but it looks good enough for social media. It looks good enough to share with you guys on here. And I thought, yeah, okay, I have a newfound appreciation for what my camera can do. Now what? And as we were driving back up to the Pacific Northwest, we were kind of somewhere between Oregon and Washington State. Sun was rising. I think we'd left our hotel this morning at like 4:30 a.m. and the sun just barely glancing off of I think this is Mount Adams, just on the other side of the Columbia River from where we were, was just incredible. And I think normally I would have waited for this whole peak to just be lit up and everything from like the base all the way up to the peak to be lit up. But I pulled over and was like, you know what? No, I'm gonna shoot this, even though there's a lot less light here. And I did have to lift a little bit of the details from the raw image. I did have to pull out a lot here. It was actually a really hazy day, and I'm surprised how much I could dehaze this in order to make it a usable image, and an image that I do plan on printing and really enjoy. Not a lot of noise, like it cleaned up really nicely. And then I gave my wife the 70-200 after I snapped that shot and threw on the 15-35, started snapping away in the opposite direction, first getting some shots of my wife, and this has turned out to be one of my favorite photos from our trip, just my wife's reflecting over the vehicle that we were just parked on the side of the road. Horizon line, just really thin gradient. I don't know why, but this particular shot was just so good. Like, I was just so pumped on it. And you'll have to indulge me for a moment. All right, I guess you don't have to, but had to back up, had to take a picture of the car. The only thing I regret here is I didn't turn on the lights. Rookie mistake. Otherwise, I think this shot would have been perfect. But we already had the wings up to get to our respective photo bags, and I was just like, hey, this is a fun shot. Like, let's go for it. The sun had just come over the horizon line, was peeking over the Tesla, and it looks good. It looks pretty sick. So that was it. Just a few photos to share with you guys. Something new that I took away from my camera, or at least a new perspective I have on shooting with this thing. Again, I wanted to share this experience with you all because it changed how I view my camera, changed how I view using my camera, where I see my camera being useful to be used in. And it's helping me not spend $6,000 on the R3 because one, I want to wait for the R1, and who knows how long that's going to take. But as much as I would like an R3, the R5 can do a lot of the things that I want it to do, and it's been a great camera. Leave a comment down below, if not your frame rate, what your loadout is and what you like to use for low light photography. Actually, let me know what your favorite subject is to shoot in low light photography, whether it's astrophotography, cars, nature, mountains, geography, whatever. Leave it down in the comments below. I always love getting inspired by you all. And with that, thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to this channel. I am honored and stoked and just so grateful for all of you here. If you haven't yet, hit the button, do the subscribe thing, and come hang out with us. We're all having a good time, and yeah, it's a fun community. I really appreciate it. Be kind, both in life and in the comments below, and like this video to send good vibes across the internet, healing vibes, please. If you guys remember, like, I crushed my foot in a weird freak accident like a week and a half ago, and I'm still recovering from that. It's painful, it sucks, my mobility is really limited, but I want to already say thank you to everyone who already has sent good healing vibes my way. I will be back in action doing more like outside exploratory adventure fun just stuff, the stuff that I do, the stuff that I enjoy doing. I will get back to it as soon as this leg heals up. It should hopefully be only 3 more weeks. But with that, we'll do it again soon. Later.